Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Here come the girls, of course, because I said something in a high-pitched voice. It's okay. So today we're going to do something different. As you can see, I got my husband with me, Gene, here, and we are celebrating a big accomplishment. We have just passed our 1-year mark of living here in Costa Rica. So I thought it would be kind of cool to share with you and each other, because Gene has no idea of what questions I'm asking, kind of what led us to get here and some questions about our experiences in the past year. So, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. The first question. Why retire early at 62 and 48 respectively?
Easy enough. At the end of the day, I had gone through a number of surgeries on my back and my neck that were not going to get better, and a lot of the things that maybe would have held off until after I retired started not looking that way. The real reason is thanks to two friends of mine. I really hadn't thought about it. I was probably going to keep working despite the condition of my body, and by the time I was finished the career, I was in general sales of motorcycles, so it's a lot of work and you're moving a lot of heavy stuff around, especially when you're talking Harleys. And but that wasn't even in my mind until I was talking to two friends of mine, one I grew up with, and in the middle of telling him what was going on with me, he's like, well, dude, you ought to just retire. And I'm like, well, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, we're going to be 62, man. You can retire early. You just got to figure out if it's worth it to you and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And that was an interesting conversation that went in the pocket. And about a week later, I talked to a college friend of mine, Dino, and all of a sudden I'm talking to Dino, same thing out of nowhere. I didn't tell him about my conversation with Rick. And he goes, well, dude, you ought to retire early. That's what I did. And then he went ahead and he told me. So now it's in my mind. It's like I'm getting almost a God vibe. Like, don't ignore the coincidence that two people close to you said the same thing. And so I actually started talking with her about it and thinking about it, and then made a decision to do it. I turned 62 on the 26th of June in 2019. No.
18. 18.
Yes, 19. And decided that I was going to retire and take Social Security, which I did. Long story short, the bad news was I was home alone.
Hang on.
Somebody wasn't with me.
Right.
And we'll get to that.
So at 48, I had no intention of retiring. Even after we made the decision to come down here, I still had no intention of retiring. I thought I would be taking some time off, acclimating, recovering mentally, physically, emotionally from that life, and then maybe do some remote work part-time after like 6 months of just kind of decompressing. And going through that process and interviews and submitting resumes, it was causing me a lot more stress and anxiety. And it took me a while to realize, like, I can't go back to that way of life. Not for my mental and physical health. And luckily, because of where we live, I didn't have to. But it did take me through a process of doing what we're doing now, which is sharing my journey of self-awareness, self-care, self-discovery, life here in Costa Rica with all of you. So me retiring just kind of happened organically after coming here and beginning this journey. Okay, next question. Why Costa Rica versus the United States or another country?
I had learned about the positive accolades and beauty of Costa Rica years ago, the 80s probably. And I always kind of kept an eye. If I saw a story about it, I would always read it. I always kept an eye on it, and I was always impressed about the way that they went about their fierce pride in their country, but they also had pride enough not to want to, bother with anybody else. No military appealed to me. I got 3 different kinds of police, but no military. And by the way, the police are, if you see a transit cop, you probably should be seeing them because they're not around. Anyway, and also, the focus on the beauty of the land and keeping it that way and letting other people come here and see the diversity. I mean, 5% of the entire the world here in the Earth's diversity in one country, which is a pretty small country about the size of West Virginia. That always appealed to me. It was a stable government that, really was, they do have some government-funded programs. They do have government health care, which also appealed to me. Only country in Central America, folks, where it's safe to drink the water. I can tell you because I drink the water every day. I've never had a problem with the water in Costa Rica. I don't know if you can hear the birds chirping behind us or the breeze that's blowing around and whatever hair I don't have. And we probably won't see my hair, but you might see hers. But recreational hunting was banned in 2012. There was a lot of things that appealed to me about Costa Rica. They actually have a friendly relationship with gringos. It's not a dirty word here, by the way. Gringo in Costa Rica just basically means you're a white guy and I don't know who you are.
Yep.
Once they know who you are, you're not a gringo anymore. So also neither here nor there. But that was really why Costa Rica. And when the number one driving factor was I was retired, my wife was working her ass off to the detriment of her health. So I'm alone, retired, no fun in that, in a place where 7 to 8 months of the year it's not altogether that hospitable at that altitude in Fort Collins.
Colorado.
And not a lot of friends and nothing to do. So I started looking into the financial aspects of Costa Rica, and they have programs for people who are retired to draw them here and to have them basically invest their retirement dollars in the Costa Rican economy versus, let's say, the other. And, right out of the gate, I'm paying a third, probably less than a third when you add in the utilities and whatnot, but everything that just to have the beautiful home I have here with access to a pool. I mean, but that's an example. Some of the things are very similar to the U.S. as far as prices, but if you love fresh fruit and vegetables, you can just kill here. We've learned to love them. But other than that, those are the things that drew me to Costa Rica. Those were the reasons I wanted to talk to Ashley. I had a place in mind. I then re-dove in to get up to date, and everything was great. And that's when I told her, I said the immortal words, how would you feel about moving to Costa Rica?
He did. One random night after I'd gotten home from work and had a crap day, he exactly, just I was like over it, and he wasn't real happy, and he just says, I think we were standing in the kitchen. I was pouring my nightly Jameson, or no, Tullamore Dew Irish whiskey after coming home from work. I was just like over it. And he says, let me ask you something. Like, okay, now what?
Right.
On top of this? And he goes, how would you feel about moving to Costa Rica? And I was not expecting that question at all. And I was like, wow.
The answer's epic.
And my answer was, well, when were you thinking? Because we were on a lease. I had this job. We had, stuff, motorcycles, the dogs. And he said, I think when...
I'm pretty sure this was like October or November, maybe?
That was when we started talking about it,
yeah.
And I said, well, we can't break our lease. So I thought our lease was up in June. Turns out it was up in March. So we had a very short window of time to make this decision. But why not both retire in the U.S. versus, Costa Rica or Panama? We looked at Panama. We looked at Ecuador. I did not look at Mexico. I looked at Belize. There was no way I would be able to stop working and live in the U.S., especially now. I mean, you are fully aware of the inflation now with the cost of gas. The housing market is through the roof. There's just no way. I don't know how people are doing it still today, living in the United States on such a fixed income. God bless if you can figure it out.
Spoiler alert here, fans. It totally worked out. But we'll get to that.
Okay. So we made the decision to come to Costa Rica. Keep in mind, we'd never been here. So the next question is, what were your top 3 must-haves when moving to Costa Rica? And would they be different knowing what you know now after being here for a year? Your top 3.
Top 3 must-haves.
That you had to bring with you when we moved down here.
Oh.
And would they still be your top 3 after having been here for a year?
Must-haves to bring here.
You need a minute?
No.
Okay.
I think the right clothing.
The right clothing. Okay.
And that includes, things, maybe it doesn't include, but it should include the right clothing and the right materials for us to enjoy the outdoor and nature aspect
For example.
of the country.
For example.
It's an easy one. Keen water sandals. You can live in them. They're incredibly durable, but your feet breathe. They dry quick. There's a million reasons to love them, but they're, I think, a must-have here in the wet season. And that's not to say wet season, from our experience, is not some giant deluge. It's a nice little monsoon rain you get every afternoon. Other than that, the weather's like it is, pretty much like it is right now.
So Keen's was your number 1.
Right.
What else?
Clothing.
Clothing,
Keens,
okay.
Not necessarily
Clothing
including,
and Keens.
the right shoes.
Yeah.
And the right shoes could be a lot of things, because I
Yeah.
got other shoes that I think
Right.
were right for here, and I'm glad that I got them and own them.
What else?
Okay, the next thing that you want to have if you come down.
That was
that-
on your must-have.
My must-have.
These top 3 things I am bringing with me come hell or high water.
Wow.
I-
Oh, okay, thank you. You're being very specific.
Yeah.
My golf clubs.
Yes, thank you.
I
The
have
golf
not.
clubs.
I have played, by the way, but I have not played a lot since I discovered Harleys, and did a lot of my free time was wrapped up in leading rides or riding with friends, which included like a club, the Fat Bastards. We did that together. Riding was something we enjoyed together.
You have not played golf since
I played with Rick
in Delaware.
So
yeah.
I would say that's probably 2018. Yeah, before we left.
Right before we left, maybe.
Right, so, or 17 maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay, so clothing and your golf clubs.
Right.
Have you played golf yet since you've
No.
been here? Okay. What's
It's not
your third
a whole lot
one?
of courses here, actually.
No. What's your third thing?
Third thing I couldn't live without. Harmonicas, interestingly enough, was not it.
Yeah.
I
that was
thought
small.
about not
bringing them.
bringing the harmonicas. Interestingly enough, but something told me, it was a quick thought too. Bring them, you'll regret not bringing them. And wow.
Okay.
Was that little whisper in my ear like totally accurate?
Put a pin in that one.
Right.
So that wasn't your one on your top 3. So what was the third one?
The camera.
The camera?
The
Was your top
camera that
3?
keeps an eye on the place.
I thought you were going to say something about the bug spray stuff because you ordered that.
No, I did, but as it turns out,
that was something you thought
it was something
important.
I really was important.
Okay.
And by the way, we haven't really gone into deep jungle, which we want to go to some of the places here like that, and some of that permethrin you can put on your clothing would come in handy. But we did get the right clothing, and we have stuff that'll not only protect us but keep us cool. So that actually probably plays a larger role.
So I'm really surprised by 2 of your 3. My top 3, my number 1, which has always been my number 1, no matter where we have gone, has been what? For me.
I don't know.
The dogs.
Oh, well.
The dogs. Well, that you
They
say,
were
oh,
assumed.
well.
So you
but
say,
a
if you
lot
phrase
of
it that way,
people-
of course it would have been the dogs. I'm
They
not
were,
going to get rid
yeah,
of the
of
dogs.
course. But a lot of people don't have that same kind of thought process. Although here they do, which I'm very pleased to see. A lot of people in the forums and stuff say, I want to bring my pets. I need help. I need some guidance.
My good friend and former sponsor, Martin, would say that the minute you give them a name, they're no longer a dog or a cat or whatever the hell it is. They're a member of the family. So it's really not, I don't see how you go from that backwards and say, fuck them. I'm sure there's people that do it. I'm not one of them.
So my number 1 must-have were the girls, the dogs. My number 2 must-have was the technology. Good working phone, laptop, computer.
Sure. Good.
Just to be able to communicate with family back home. I think that's very important. It was a requirement of our daughter, Jessica, to
Yes.
have good internet.
Yeah, that was a deal breaker.
So that was my number 2. My number 3 was a year supply of medicine for the dogs and things like Tylenol and ibuprofen and things like that. You know, your over-the-counter
Here's
stuff.
another
I
news
didn't
flash.
know
They
if
sell
we were
that
gonna
shit
get-
in Costa Rica.
I know, but I didn't know what the pricing was going to be. I want to make sure
I get it.
you know, we had like a good cache of medications to come down here with. Those were my probably 3 must-haves. Okay. Would those 3 things change now or be different now that you've been here for a year? Would you change any of your 3?
Yes.
Which one?
I still think the clothing and footwear is a really solid idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, in fairness, it's hard to judge that now because so much has changed for me.
Yes.
And I don't want to give anything away if
Right,
you have other questions, but I'm so blessed and focused on something else and enjoying doing it. And
So your answer is the clubs, the golf clubs. Is that would be something you would put in storage?
Yeah, I would probably put them in storage.
I can't see you of letting them go. I could see you putting them in storage. Okay. For me,
I wouldn't let them go because they're important to me.
right. For me, I think it's all the hoarding of the medication, because you can get things like ibuprofen and Tylenol and Benadryl, things like that here, relatively inexpensively. If you go to places like PriceSmart, which is equal to Costco or Sam's Club in the United States.
Just curious, did you folks notice that she got the answer out of me she wanted by giving the answer that she wanted? Oh, so the golf clubs, right?
Well,
I never said a word about the golf clubs.
I knew
until
where he was
she
going,
did.
but I knew where you were going.
Is that it? Okay.
After being here for a year. Okay. That was probably it. We didn't need all those meds. And turns out we're both off of all of our prescribed medication. In fact, I think this is important to note. When we met with our doctor the first time, I was on like 3 different ones. Jean was on a long list of medications. And she was like, holy cow, well, we don't have that here, but we'll try to find something equivalent to that. I feel like having been here and just really allowed our bodies to heal and our minds to heal and to be eating right and healthy and not eating dirty processed foods and stuff has really allowed our minds and our bodies to heal in such a way that we are now, especially you, 100% off of all of our medications. Now, I'm not saying this like you should move down here and you should stop all your medications. Don't do that without your doctor's consultation or anything like that. We just made a choice. I made a choice and then you chose separately, I would say.
I believe that the choice became viable and possible with a word you did not say.
No,
And that is, as
you can say it. It's okay.
the removal of stress.
Yes.
The removal of what we were doing and what
Yeah.
was going on and the burden of the crushing weight of
Right.
some that placed on ourselves. We ain't saying that we didn't.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there was an epiphany. Fortunately, I really liked retirement, but I really didn't like not having my best friend with me to share it with every day. And that's what we get to do now. So
Okay.
that's it.